It's 4 o'clock. Wherever you commissioners are you all here? Let's see, Joseph. I saw Ron. Where'd Ron go?
Coffee.
Commissioner Carlson getting coffee. All right. We have some chairs for folks. We weren't expecting theater seating here today, but that's good. So, welcome to all. Happy New Year to all. Told you I'd see you all next year.
Yeah?
No?
Oh, ho, ho, ho. I haven't heard that
Yeah, I
one.
got that one. All right. Leanne, you want to call the roll? We'll get going here.
Carlson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Ostrowski.
Here.
Kirchling.
Here.
Westcott.
Here. And whoever that is here too. Okay. A couple of quick announcements. We have a number of promotions that we're going to get to in just a moment. We're delighted that so many family members can be with us here. But I do want the record to reflect a couple of things that sometimes gets lost in all of our business, Leanne. We are in the month of January, as it's been reported in I think the City Times has reported this. We say thank you to 4 very good police officers. We say thank you to Sergeant Paul Piotrowski, to Mr. Sergeant Gruba, to Corporal Wheeler, and to Officer Michael Bink. It is officer, right? Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They have served this community for a long time with honor and distinction, and the Commission wishes to single them out and to thank them for the record in our minutes for their service to this community. We also are going to say goodbye to Assistant Fire Chief Jeff Davis. Davis joined the department in 1985, served 31 years in this department, and has selected Friday the 13th as his retirement date. So is Jeff here? Okay, well then I'll can the rest of that speech. Yeah, we can can the rest of that speech, but we commend him for his service. And I think we also would be a bit remiss if we also didn't at least recognize that this month the city is going to have its Director of Public Works, Scott Schatzsnyder, move on into the private sector. Scott has served, as the Alder knows, and staff, as a great resource to the Alders, to the city staff, and to this commission. He certainly played a very instrumental role in the procurement of the safety lights out here on Franklin and Division, among many other projects. So we wish to thank him for his service and commend his work for the city of Stevens Point. With that being said, I will move to item 3, which is a discussion of the pay plan placement of Assistant Chief for the Fire Department. Chief Finn, you have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, Commissioners, in front of you is City Administrative Policy 2.06 and pay plan. I don't believe it's been passed, but recommended by the City Council for 2017. Under number 4, Assistant Chief of Police and Fire Department should start at a minimum of step 3. Police and Fire Commission may also request a higher starting step. Such request must go before the Personnel Committee. The paragraph before that would be an increase of at least 5%. For Captain McGans is now, after discussing with Comptroller Raddick, we recommend that instead of starting at S3, where you start at grade S, step 5.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Go ahead.
How does that compare with police department? Same type of movement on a promotion such as this?
Sure. Well, with the police department, basically with the implementation of the new pay plan, a lot of them got pushed forward. I believe like Assistant Chief Zenner would be going into step 7. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So basically, and then also Assistant Chief Gemza would be at step 7 as well. So the new Assistant Chief would be at step 5, basically 2 steps back from the more senior guys.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yep.
Okay, I'll move approval of the recommendation from the fire chief.
I'll second it.
Comment or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. With the permission of the commission, we have a number of promotions. Let me jump to 5. I'll come back to 4, Corey.
Okay.
But we have a lot of family members and firefighters here, and I know they're eager to get on with their evening too. So with that, again, since you have the floor, Chief Finn, why don't you take us through the promotions for the fire department to assistant chief, captain, and lieutenant.
Okay.
Which one are you going to do first?
Captain Began.
Okay, captain? All right. Got it.
There's a lot of stuff.
Captain Jody J. Began. Captain Jody J. Began, you are hereby promoted to the rank of assistant chief effective January 3rd, 2017. Congratulations. You, President Westcott will sign this, you get a copy, and then a copy of the personnel file.
Always good to see a fellow Brewer fan climbing the ranks.
Who won the World Series?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, this is for your file. Okay.
Wendy?
Is there a paramedic in the room?
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of
Wendy,
years.
we're looking at it.
Yeah. Straight back. Joseph?
Lieutenant Paul Matlin, you are hereby promoted to the rank of captain effective January 13, 2017. Congratulations. And I'll get this signed for you.
Where's the other one?
Like the Academy Awards.
Yes, it is.
Way more exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Way more important.
Everybody.
That's what you saying, the Declaration of Independence.
John Hancock.
About 32 more people need to sign it then.
Firefighter David F. Briggs, you are hereby promoted to the rank of lieutenant effective January 13, 2017.
I know.
I got quite an assembly line going here, Chief. Leanne. All right. Should we pause for the cake?
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, okay. No cake. No cake. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No cake. Yeah.
You've got a little time on your hands,
Okay. Well, meeting adjourned.
right?
All right. Congratulations to all the who have been promoted. We're very happy for you. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of the city and the people who live here. We do appreciate it. All right. Let's return now to item 4. Discussion regarding the credit card policy of the city of Stevens Point. Chief Skibba, you want to kick this off, and I'll recognize the comptroller?
Yes, sir. In your packets, you should see several copies regarding the Finance Committee's agenda listing this brought before Finance last month, as well as the changes by Finance, as well as behind that, my bullets as to reasons why credit cards, quite frankly, for meals at times, are important for, quite frankly, us doing our job operation.
Okay.
We can't determine necessarily when an incident's going to occur, but whether it's the March homicide that occurred, whether it's some recent investigations that took officers down in Milwaukee or Chicago doing warrants, there are moments where, as things unfold, criminal investigations, we need to stay on them. So I am requesting that the Police and Fire Commission recognize those that under the last submitted policy changes, that this would fall under the unusual instances or circumstances.
Okay, so fundamentally, you're asking the commission to approve the fourth page of this four-page handout. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
Excuse me for a second.
Which one are you, oh, you're entitled, the one with chiefs?
The one, yes, with the PD header on it, correct.
Okay, all right. Corey?
Well, I guess I haven't seen a copy of what his bullets or what he's asking for.
Here.
I know that we had originally talked, and he had a concern about taking out the language of in unusual circumstances. And basically, this is how it reads, is in unusual circumstances, if the city credit card has to be used for a per diem meal, any amount over the per diem rate must be repaid to the city. The purpose of that clause is very specific, and it's, okay, meals are supposed to be reimbursed. We have a per diem reimbursement policy, but if somebody does use the city credit card for whatever reason, we have specified per diem rates. So say you're allotted $10 for lunch and you would charge $12. That's basically our clause to recover the $2. After listening to the concerns of the chief, you know, we're fine with leaving it in. It doesn't really necessarily give you permission, I would say, to break the policy. But it really just means if somebody would break the policy, that's our clause to recover those dollars. I know I've asked the chief, okay, you know, because there was only one time that they did, you know, have somebody use a city credit card, which actually isn't too bad for a city policy. That's pretty good adherence. Not aware of any other time, and I did verify that with the chief, no other time that they've had to do this. So I think one thing that might be getting confused is, okay, are these changes that, you know, that are a problem, or is it that we want something else? But the reason for the policy changes before you is this is actually an audit recommendation, and the auditors recommended a few things. They said you have to update your credit card policy. They said we want you to add language as far as what's not allowed, so that's why I added some of the language on, you know, you can't use it for cash advances, bank checks, traveler's checks. They wanted more in the policy about the documentation that you have to retain, and also they said they wanted more information about the review process, especially for department head approvals, as well as approvals for the comptroller treasurer, since the deputy comptroller performs most of those reviews. So an extra fraud check, so that's why we added in that the comptroller treasurer, it'll be verified by the city clerk. It had to be somebody of basically comparable authority. Now, if we want to throw in to the mix other changes that people want, I don't know if that's the intention to kind of hold this up because there are other changes that we want, but I do want to stress this is an audit recommendation. You know, we can continue to discuss any other changes. I would invite the police chief to let me know what those are and to, you know, engage my office in dialogue if he does have issues. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, based on our original discussion, you know, we tried to find something that was fair to everyone. The other thing, the reason why, because I know people sometimes get confused as far as why we do certain things the way we do. One of the reasons why it's an issue to use credit cards for meals is if it's a non-overnight stay and it doesn't involve what the IRS defines as substantial sleep or rest, and they have a very specific way of defining it, now it's taxable. So that's another issue where, okay, so now somebody charged it to the credit card, but it's actually a taxable reimbursement. So then it actually has to go through payroll. So this is a lot of the minutia of, we try to understand what's going on in other departments and what are the needs of other departments. But there are also needs of my department as well. There are needs to comply with the law, to comply with IRS code, to have a standard process that's understandable for everybody, to have everyone on the same page so there's no confusion as far as, okay, did they charge it to the credit card, did they not, how did this work? We don't have credit cards for every employee, so that would be another issue. So I'm not sure exactly if the chief is asking for a specific change to the policy or where
I
this is
thought I
going.
heard you say that you had either not made a modification or you had removed a modification that would give the chief the flexibility he was looking for. Did I understand you correctly?
Well, I think part of the issue is, see, you weren't allowed to use credit cards for meals under the old policy, basically, and you're not under the new policy. I mean, it doesn't say in unusual circumstances you may use the credit card, or in these unusual circumstances you can use the credit card. It just says, in unusual circumstances, if the city credit card has to be used for a per diem meal, any amount over the per diem rate must be repaid to the city. So it really, like I said, it's solely a clause there to allow us to recover those monies. But, if we're talking about, okay, somebody lost their wallet, there's an emergency, whatever. I mean, in the event that somebody does, I'm not inviting anyone to break the policy by any means. We should try and follow policies. But at the same time, if this is a once in a 5-year kind of thing that comes up, I know it came up once in the last 5 to 10 years.
Help the commission understand. Does the chief of police enjoy the flexibility under this policy that under unusual circumstances, or if they're in the midst of a homicide investigation, I don't want them worrying about how to pay for lunch? Do they have that flexibility?
I would say it's not allowed under the policy.
Okay.
I mean, basically the standard, and there are people who travel out of town for
Okay.
any number of reasons. The standard is to get reimbursed, to submit your expense report, basically your per diem, okay, has gone for this amount of time and to get reimbursed. For most of our employees, that has not been an issue
Okay.
to get reimbursed.
So they would be breaking the policy if they use their credit card for a meal.
Yes.
Then why are we talking about it? Either you're in compliance or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure, Sherry.
If you're in the middle of a homicide investigation and you have all your detectives in the room and you're going to order them pizza for lunch, that happens a lot. That's not what we're referring to here. What we're referring to is taking your card to McDonald's and go buying lunch. That is what has always been prohibited in the credit card policy. I mean, as far as having meetings and buying lunch for people, you are doing that now. That's
On the credit card?
considering- On the credit card.
Okay.
But you're not buying individual meals. We have a meal and mileage reimbursement policy on top of this.
Okay.
If they're not entitled to a meal, I mean, just because you're working 8 hours a day and you're out in the field somewhere, doesn't mean the city's going to buy you lunch. I mean,
All
you
right.
still have to.
But they have a per diem.
No,
If they're out of
if-
town, if they're,
If they're out, that's what I'm
They're
saying,
out.
if they're out of town. I'm
Right.
not saying you're
Right.
working in town and you go, well, I'm gonna stop off and instead of stopping speeders, I'm gonna go grab some lunch and the city should pay for it. That's not what we're talking about, isn't it? What we're talking about is if there's an unusual circumstance that the officer should not have to worry about where their money's gonna come from. I mean, the way I look at it is if you're, I know this is unusual and it's exaggerating it, but you're off to Iraq in a war, and now you're going to have to worry about the finer details. They should be worrying about their job, not where their meal's going to come from. So from my standpoint, I think the policy needs to be changed to accommodate unusual circumstances.
Yeah, and I think for 90% of the city employees working in the building 8 to 4, the policy works pretty good the way you have it. But for going down to Beaver Dam to interview one suspect, which turns into 2 suspects, which turns into 3 witnesses, we didn't plan to be here all day and pass. So I think there's going to be those special circumstances. I'm just curious, let's say Ted's going out of town to school for 4 days. Do you still pay up head in cash? That was the way it was 6 years ago. So he gets his lunch, breakfast, and supper money before he even goes. Is that how it is now?
No.
You have to worry about it, and you have to plan.
Yeah.
The officer has to take enough cash with him.
Well, or a credit card or any other method of payment that, he might have.
Second question, how many credit cards are issued to each department? I'm just curious.
I want to.
Police department has the most departments have one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe the police department has 9. Is that correct? Or does that sound right?
So if they're going to Milwaukee for a week-long homicide investigator school, they can't even give them the credit card to go because that would be against policy, correct?
The credit card is what you'd use to pay for your lunch.
But that's all taxable and everything, I thought.
No, the only time meals are taxable is if it's a same-day trip. So
Okay.
if there's no substantial sleep or rest.
Okay.
So lodging wouldn't be taxable, and also if it's multiple days, if there's substantial sleep or rest, as defined by the IRS, which is usually an overnight hotel stay, then that is non-taxable.
As a taxpayer, I appreciate you guys watching this stuff, but it shouldn't be this hard. Should it? I mean, for everybody, it
It
just...
might not, should be, but the problem is, these are what our auditors hold us
Right,
to.
right, and I
So
realize,
if
I'm just
everyone's
venting, Carrie.
It's not what they hold you to. It's a recommendation of an audit. It's not you saying you have to do this. It's a recommendation. Is that true or is that true or false?
I would say you have a treasurer on the county side who was not successful in implementing audit recommendations,
Oh,
and she is no longer
I think
there.
that's reaching pretty far. We're not talking about what happened there. Is not talking about a meal being reimbursed.
It was brought up in the media how many times that this was an audit recommendation, and there were these 10 recommendations, and
So at the end of the day, Chief Skiba, Comptroller, what's the solution?
Well, I must confess, I'm a little bit confused regarding the level of communication that's spoken about like it's occurred. I have voiced my concern about this issue, and I keep hearing that payment for a meal on credit card is against policy. I'm at a loss. What policy is it? Where does it say credit cards cannot be used? Because so far it says unusual circumstances. If there's any place within the city of Stevens Point that generates unusual circumstances, it's operation of the police department. So I'm at a loss with, maybe you can tell me what policy it is. And then I guess I'll ask to change it.
I guess it would be 3.03 travel reimbursements.
There's nothing that states credit card in there whatsoever. So if it stays silent, the only language on credit cards for meals is in the credit card policy that says you can use it.
So if the commission grants I gave it to you, Corey, I don't have it. Thank you. Does this solve the problem?
It addresses the bulk of it. Per part of the conversation that the comptroller relayed to as far as no prior issues besides the one with Assistant Chief Bobble at the time, it's because we were advised that credit cards can't be used, so we didn't use them thinking
Okay.
we were abiding by policy. And
Okay.
yet I cannot find any language that supports that. So yes, this would address the bulk of my concern, and I do believe it meets the current language of the credit card policy.
Then am I right to understand that this actually kind of defines what you're calling unusual circumstances?
Everyday work at the PD, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just want to make sure I understand this. You're suggesting that everyday work at the PD would fall under unusual circumstances?
My point being here is, We have investigators that start out at the beginning of the day, and at the end, they're not sure where a call will take them.
Okay, I respect that.
That's common to what occurs in the 20,000 plus calls for service we respond to.
Okay.
And so I don't believe we're asking for a million times on credit card. We're talking about those instances where it's evolving, it's outside the city, and I need the officers to be focused on the investigation.
And where you have really
Not-
no
not
idea
a
of how
meal.
long the day is gonna be.
Correct.
You can't say it's gonna be an 8-hour day, a 12-hour day, a 4-hour day. You just have no idea until
Because,
it happens.
and unfortunately, even with the meal reimbursement, and I understand, again, it's kind of scheduled for a 9 to 5 kind of job, but when I have a detective who comes in at 7 in the morning and gets home, gets a call out at 3 in the morning, and they're going and going and going, at what time do they stop and eat? And that's not acceptable for them to submit, so it may be more than just this particular policy that creates issues for us. But I would say primarily those bullet points do clarify my larger concerns for just being able to do our job operationally.
Okay. Corey, thoughts?
Well, you know, I would say one of the biggest is, you know, again, if we're going to look at making exceptions or even having a different policy, one of the biggest things that we need is cooperation. And what I mean by that is, you know, we do have the per diem amounts. Part of the issue is recovering that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had a lot of issues with the police department as far as getting things done correctly, you know, supplying, I mean, we have a one-page form, it's oftentimes not filled out correctly, and we need more help from the PD. We really do, because this has the potential to create a lot more work for my department. And I'll agree, it does not have to be this hard, and it's not this hard for other departments. So,
I was just getting ready to ask, what do other departments do? You've read my mind. Other police departments.
Well, other police departments is another story, I would think.
Well,
But other departments in town, in the city, you said that the police department has the most credit cards.
mhm.
Are you trying to make this blanket even for everybody? Where that really shouldn't be the goal here, because the streets department really does not act anywhere near the same way as the police department does. So, do we need to look through and find out somewhere in state law if there's a different accounting process for police department credit card usage as opposed to streets department or parks or anybody else?
well, there wouldn't really be a difference in accounting. I would say, you know, the biggest things, because it's not a matter of, especially if somebody is overnight, that really helps as far as the IRS compliance. So especially if you're going to allow people to use credit cards for overnight, that we wouldn't have as much of a concern about. It's not that we can't make, you know, exceptions for different departments, but part of it is, okay, does it make sense? It's nice to have everyone kind of on one process, if that works.
It's obviously not working.
Well, yes, it has. We've had this policy in effect since, I mean, I was there when we initially received credit cards. When the city first got credit cards for everybody,
Carrie, what year was that again?
Hmm?
What year was that again?
I want to say it was, I don't know the exact year, but I want to say it's been like 16 years we've had credit cards.
Okay.
But we've never had a problem with the policy. There has never been a problem. The only time we had a problem with the policy was when Bobble went, which we took care of. It was, just a problem. The whole reason John Schleiss put in unusual circumstances, the whole reason that was in there is because there was a few times back, I don't remember, I don't think it was, one of the fire chiefs was at a conference, and they were, I don't think it was you. One of the police fire chiefs was at a conference,
Say no
and
more.
they had a sit-down dinner with all the fire chiefs. And the reason it was put in there is because they got the bill, and, you know, fire chief thought it was being paid for, whatever, so anyway, That's what that was put in there for. That was not meant, the unusual circumstances that you guys are referring to is different than what it was created for. And I can see where there could be an misunderstanding, but there never was before now. This is the first time that there's been a problem.
So
The first.
that language in here really spells out,
Going hog wild.
yeah, the multiple day investigations, the out-of-town investigations, the rapidly evolving public safety response. That really defines to a deeper level what you're talking about.
And that was never a problem before, which is why it's.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you said there was one incident. So why
Well, we
is
just-
one incident bringing
Mhm.
up all of this need for change?
I would agree.
I mean, well, but you guys are saying there's a problem between your department and the police department with filling out paperwork correctly.
I'm going to jump in here, Commissioner Moore. That's what I heard too, and I thought, I know everybody's time is precious, but the biggest downfall in any organization is communication. And I don't know if you have the time to sit down, whoever fills that form out, but
I would love to, and we've suggested that. We've said we'd like to sit down with you and go through it, because it really doesn't have to be this hard.
No.
And yeah, if we can just meet, if they would just be willing to meet with us to go through this, I think, at least as far as, and it's kind of another issue I realize with meal and mileage reimbursement, but it's a one-page form. And we just need to have a chance to go through it with them, and I think if they understand it, then that, I think, can be okay.
set a
Is that a
time and a
different
date.
issue? Are those two different
It-
issues?
Mr. Mayor, you've been trying to weigh in on this for some time.
Just a couple of comments and observations. First of all, I'm gathering that the auditors have made a recommendation to not use the credit card for food. Is that true, and can we produce that recommendation? One. And two, it would seem to me that overnight stays meet the IRS guidelines.
The auditors, yeah.
So any overnight stay, you should be able to use the credit card for meal reimbursements up to the per diem. If there's anything above the per diem, you need to reimburse the city. And then I would suggest that we set a threshold. Other employers that I've had a threshold. If you are out of the office for X hours, 12 hours, that counts as an overnight stay. And there's got to be some guideline in there. So, one, do we have an actual recommendation from some auditor that says we shouldn't use credit cards for meal purchases? And can we produce that? And two, if overnight stays are not the big deal, let's state that in a policy, that overnight stays, you can use the credit card for meals up to your per diem. If you exceed that, you have to reimburse the city the difference. And then make a definition of, I forget what the words were that the IRS said, reasonable sleep period or whatever that happened to be. Set X hours, 10 hours out of the office, 12 hours out of the office counts, and something that the auditors would agree to.
Okay, in the 3 more minutes I'm going to spend on this, go ahead and
Okay.
answer, and then we're going to
be
move
very
on.
clear, the audit recommendation, which was included in your packet, did not really talk about using the credit card for meals.
Right.
And if you look at most of the changes in the policy, now they did ask us to more clearly define what's allowed and not allowed.
Okay.
But if you look at the changes, they're not, I mean, it does kind of spell out the no travel related meals. That's something that was current practice, but the audit recommendation was mainly to add more details to the policy, to document the business purpose, to document the review. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of why we're trying to look at this. Now, I get the feeling that basically the reason why all this other stuff is coming up is because there's maybe a desire to change the policy, to add more than just what the audit recommendations are. Because the audit recommendation, to be very clear, it did specify you need to add detail on unallowable purchases, but it did not say specifically you can't use the credit card for meals. I would say that's a discretionary decision typically that a municipality is going to make as far as what works best for the paperwork process. Certainly I think we want to keep it streamlined as far as how it works for ours. And I think the main point that I was trying to make is if we're going to use more credit cards for meals, the concern is, okay, so somebody goes over to their per diem by $2. Who's going to recover that $2? And it's really tough for my office, for all of those burdens, for us to have to kind of chase after everyone all day. So that's really what I was asking for is, okay, if you're going to ask for more exceptions, then you have to kind of partner with us to make it work.
And I
Can
do.
I ask you one question? And I seem to be seeing the timeline coming between an average 8-hour day and an overnight. The timeline in between there seems to be the questionable one. If an officer he's out down in Madison on an investigation, it goes 11 hours. If he uses his own credit card, is that reimbursed?
It is,
If he stays within the per diem?
yeah, and it is. Now,
What is the difference then if he uses his own and he uses the city one?
well, and the big thing is, so
Is it to comply with the IRS or what is it? Because I don't see the difference.
you have the substantial sleeper rest. So basically, if you're really under the IRS policy, if you work 36 hours straight, they're going to say, well, you didn't have substantial sleeper rest in there, so it's
And I understand
so
the
it's
overnight
taxable.
thing.
So basically, it's the process of, okay, if it doesn't meet the IRS test, which includes substantial sleeper rest, then at that point it's going through payroll so that it's reported as taxable income.
Commissioner Kirschland?
And you had mentioned substantial paperwork. Now, just correct me if I'm wrong. This happened once in the last
What?
year,
Oh.
and you had mentioned chasing around.
Oh, well, we have had, not related to the credit card policy, but just related to meal and mileage reimbursement forms. We've had it, I mean, it's,
Sure, and I understand that's probably a real pain. But when it comes to the credit card, how many times have you in the last year you had to chase and do all that?
well, we haven't had to because no one in the police department has used their credit card for meals in the past year. We have had a few, sometimes you'll have people who lose a receipt. I mean, you do have stuff like that happen. But
Okay, Commissioner Carlson, then we're going to need to wrap this up because we have a substantial agenda.
I'm just looking for a commitment from Chief Skiba and maybe Treasurer, Comptroller Laddick. Would there be a time where you could sit down to eliminate your chasing, to do the forms properly, or whatever has to be done just to smooth this out a little bit? The everyday stuff, not the one in exception in 5 years,
Oh, yeah.
but the everyday stuff to work it out together somehow? Is it who's responsible from the PD? Is that you, Leanne?
it is.
Okay, so I think that would be the simplest step first. Is
That's
just-
that's a different issue than what.
This is the
than
policy. I'm just talking about as Corey said, the meat and potatoes, maybe because I'm hungry, but I'm thinking about meat and potatoes, but just simplify it a little bit.
It sounds like we have a couple of options here because we do need to move on. We have a very lengthy agenda, and as important as this may be, it is an important issue. We can say to the Chief of Police, we have reviewed the proposed city credit card policies you have submitted to the commission, and we go on record endorsing this, or we say, we've heard from the mayor, who has asked some very good questions. We've heard from the comptroller, who has said, well, there are portions of this that could use some clarification. Should we as a commission say, why don't the police chief, the comptroller, and whoever else needs to be involved in this spend the next couple of weeks, because we're going to gather again here in January, see what we can work out as a compromise, including the issues you've identified, Mr. Mayor. And that would be my recommendation, is to simply postpone any formal action and give you a homework assignment and say, is there room for compromise or solution in the next couple of weeks? I think there is.
I would ask that the finance committee take no action on it then either.
Okay. All right. Everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That shall be. And Mr. Mayor, you had some very good suggestions. I would suggest some of that be incorporated into this language here.
I would be happy to participate in those meetings.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else? All right, we don't really need to have a vote on that. I think the direction is clear. Chief, you okay with that?
Yes,
All right, good. All right, let's see. Where are we now? Item 6 is the consent agenda, anticipating the length of this meeting. Leanne, always reading my mind,
I have
has
my paperwork back.
Oh, yeah. You want to keep mine?
Oh,
That way you have it?
yeah.
Why don't you just hang on to it? All right, we have a consent agenda on the fire chief's EMS report, the police chief's report, the minutes from December the 6th and December the 8th, and the bills from December 2016. Again, the consent agenda is to do all of them in one motion so we can get into an executive session here.
So moved.
We have a motion on the consent agenda from Commissioner Carlson,
Second that.
seconded by Commissioner Kirschling. Are there any comments on those 4 items before we move forward? If not, you're voting to approve the consent agenda of those 4 items. And Leanne, would you please call the roll?
Carlson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Ostrowski,
Yes.
Kirschling,
Yes.
Westcott.
Yes. All right, moving to item 7, we're going to adjourn into closed session for all those items that are listed there in front of you. I
I'll
will
make a-
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to. close
Commissioner
the-
Kirschling, seconded by,
Adjourn to closed session.
I'll second it.
Carlson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Ostrowski,
Yes.
Kirschling,
Yes.
Westcott.
Yes. All right, we'll clear the room.
So-
All right, well, we do appreciate all of your,
I should say aye.
we appreciate your patience. It's been a long meeting, but we have, as I have told all of you individually, the commission has worked tonight to clear basically a month's worth of work, so we can have a special meeting, which we have yet to decide when that meeting date's going to be. So Leanne will be polling all of you later as to when you're available. So with that being said, who is representing the fire service? But
Yeah.
you got it?
Give the kid the matches. There you go.
I got a helmet in the trunk of my car.
Yeah.
I do the jokes here, Tony. Anywhere else, you can have the jokes.
Why are you cleaning up after those guys?
I tell you. All right, I'm going to move that the Police and Fire Commission for the City of Stevens Point appoint Greg Arndt as a probationary firefighter paramedic for the City of Stevens Point, pending the satisfactory completion of all his hiring protocols, including physical and other required exams.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling to hire Mr. Arndt. Is there discussion? As probationary firefighter paramedic, Assistant Chief Gemza. All in favor of the hire, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Congratulations and welcome to the team. All right, with that being said, I will move that Alexander Alex Beach be offered the position of probationary police officer for the City of Stevens Point upon the successful completion of all hiring protocols in the police department.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. Further discussion? All in favor of hiring Mr. Beach, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Congratulations. Welcome. With that being said, I will move that the position of probationary police officer be offered to Jenna Brandt upon the successful completion of all of the required hiring protocols, that she be retained as a probationary police officer in the City of Stevens Point. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Ostrowski. Couldn't get in there.
I'm too
Okay.
slow.
All right. All in favor of hiring Jenna, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Congratulations, Jenna, and welcome. I have a hunch we're going to know where Jenna is in the
Yeah.
police department. We're going to be able to follow her, Tom. All right, let's see. Where are you, Bob? You got back into that chair.
I did.
I'm really proud of you.
He took the belt off.
All right. I'm going to move that the commission affirm the promotion of Robert Cuso to police sergeant in the City of Stevens Point. Bob is successfully completing his probation on his birthday, January the 5th, and we are removing the title of probationary and appointing you a sergeant of regular status in the police department. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner. You're slowing down with age, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like I'm on Jeopardy or something.
Second by Commissioner Moore. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Bob.
What was that?
I don't know. All right, we have two individuals that we are moving to the probationary status as sergeant in the police department. We'll do this individually, though. Tony Zableski. Tony joined the department in '95. Wow. Tony's had a great career, and it's really an honor to make the motion promoting him to the position of probationary sergeant in our police department, seconded by...
I'm honored to second that.
I was going to give it to Kirschling.
I knew you were. That's why I wanted to say something.
Seconded by Commissioner Carlson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Tony. Next, we are moving to promote Joe Johnson to the position of probationary sergeant in our police department. Joe has been with us since 11. I'm not sure all those years are going to. Joe is going to be moving into the position of probationary sergeant, and
I'll
I so
second
move.
that.
I don't know the anniversary date, but when the position becomes official, I don't know the Tom, what is it?
28th.
January 28th. All right, effective January 28th.
I second that.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Congratulations, Joe. Officer Jeremy, I can't even remember my writing, is being moved to the position of probationary corporal. I would so make that motion with the probationary period included. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Jeremy. And last but certainly not least, I will move that we promote Officer Ted Wanta to the position of probationary corporal, effective whatever date the chief has selected here for both these corporals, and you can make that decision. We don't need to determine that. Is there a second to the motion to promote Ted?
I'll second. Okay, Bob.
Commissioner Ostrowski. All in favor of promoting Ted Wanta to corporal, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Congratulations, Ted. Congratulations to all of you. The only other item we have is I want all of you commissioners to give Leanne either tonight or within the next 48 hours a date where you would be available for a second meeting this month on that topic we've discussed. All right, line up. We can shake some hands here.
The gauntlet. You have to run the gauntlet. Nice job, Joe. Congratulations, Ted. Jeremy, good man. Robert, keep it going. Keep it going.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Tony, show that passion, brother. Nice job. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard. You're the only firefighter in the crowd here.
Rough crowd. Well, what are you shooting for? Like a Tuesday?
With that, we're adjourned.